there are a couple of things. As I said, I was burnt out. I mean, there was no question about it. And a lot of it was me putting it on myself, as I said to you. But there was also a question that was really starting to bother me that I really couldn't answer and put my finger on was, I had a real close relationship with Vince, and I'll be honest with you, there was, I don't want to say it was a father-son relationship, but there were times when I looked up to him as a father. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. There were. And when you start looking at somebody that way, that, I mean, you put on a pedestal, you start wondering if they feel the same way about you. You start wondering, does this individual really care about me, or am I his cash cow? I mean, you really start wondering, and you know what? You probably shouldn't, because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're still getting paid and it's a job. But I was really starting to think about that. So basically what happened was I went to Vince and I told him about burnout and this, that, and the other thing, and, whether I needed some time off or whatever. But, Vince made a comment to me at the time that I felt answered that question for me. And he made a comment that I really felt at the time I was the cash cow. And personally, he didn't care. He didn't care as much about me as maybe I thought he did. And that lit a lot of wind out of my sails.
Can you elaborate what the comment was?
Well, yeah, basically I told him that I wasn't seeing my kids anymore. You got to understand now too. I started this thing, in my mid-30s. Now I'm getting close to 40.
Right.
I don't know how old you are, but I'm telling you, when you turn 40, a lot's going to change in your life. A lot changes. So now I'm turning 40, and now it was like, okay, I'm strangers to my kids. I need to spend more time with my kids. And I kind of, mentioned that to Vince, and, Vince turned around and he looked me in the eye and he goes, I don't understand. Why don't you just hire a nanny? And when he said that to me, as much as I love my children, I mean, that's when I sat there and I said, this guy don't give a shit about me, And the combination of that and the burnout I was feeling at the show at the time with the two shows, the combination of those two led me to believe that the grass might be greener on the other side.
Right.
Again, I go back and I say it's not rocket science, okay? And the one thing that, I felt strongly was we were doing a product that was 10, 20 years ago. And what we really needed to do was we needed to bring the product up to speed. We needed to mirror society like the WCW was doing with NWO. One other thing I really felt strongly about was in wrestling, and as a wrestling fan, for years and years and years, you would watch it and everything would be done a certain way. It was like there was a handbook to wrestling. You knew when the guy was going to run in. You knew when the guy was going to miss the knee from the top rope. You knew every single thing that was going to happen. You definitely knew who was going over. I mean, there was no question about it. And basically, what I first said to Vince was, Vince, throw away the handbook. I said, let's go the other way. I said, let's get away from what people are expecting and what they've seen for the last 20 years, because once you start going the other way, now they don't know what you're going to do. Once they don't know what you're going to do, that's how you hook people to watch every single week. So when we would get together and sit down and watch the television, we knew traditionally how this story was going to end, and what we made a conscious effort to do was go the other way. And I mean, after doing that for weeks and months and years, now you had everybody hooking onto your product because they had no idea what the WWF was going to do tonight. And it was that simple.
What were some of your first angles that you did?
When I first got started, they were kind of doing the Steve Austin, Savio Vega thing, okay? And I think one of the things that really started and really took off when I started was Austin. Okay, and it was this simple. It was one day Steve Austin putting on a pair of headsets and doing commentating on Raw. And I was a fan of Steve Austin in WCW. I always liked Austin. I don't think Vince really knew the Steve Austin character. Vince didn't watch ECW. Vince didn't watch much of WCW, so I don't really think he knew who Austin was. that one night, the minute Austin put on those headsets and Steve Austin came out, man, I remember sitting there watching it that night, and I knew, I said, the sky's the limit with him. And basically what we did was we gave him the tool, and we just rode that horse. And I mean, that was probably the first thing that I was involved in.